Trump held back negotiations with Iran and turned the Gulf pressure into a crazy trap against the Iranian dictatorship. This Thursday, May 28th. After Trump accused the Iranian regime of trying to stall the talks, buy time, and wait for the US political calendar to change, the White House is working with a different logic, letting Iran show how far it would go to scare Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Pakistan, and then demanding from these governments a choice they have avoided for decades, which involves all these Arab nations signing the Abraham Accords and recognizing the nation of Israel. A surprising move that could solve a centuries-old problem in the Middle East. What did Trump see? Why did Iran fall? And how does this dramatically change the Gulf? I'll tell you all about it in a moment. If you like this kind of straightforward and no-nonsense content, consider subscribing because we have videos like this every day. Trump didn't treat the postponement as a mere pause. He used the time to gauge the desperation of the governments living amid the tension. Iran tried to turn regional fear into a weapon against Washington. Tehran imagined that this would hold back the White House, but this move revealed the opposite. It showed that Gulf neutrality no longer protects anyone. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates spent years trying to maintain a comfortable position. They talked to Washington, negotiated with other powers, avoided direct confrontation with Tehran, and kept a public distance from Israel when it seemed convenient. The problem is that Iran attacked anyway. The Iranian regime showed that for them, even a neutral government can become a target if it's in the way of their regional pressure. That's where Trump saw an opening. When these leaders asked Washington for caution, they weren't just asking for calm, they were admitting dependence. They showed that they needed the United States to contain Iran, protect the flow of commerce, and prevent the crisis from exploding onto their own economies. Trump got the message. If the Gulf needs American protection, the Gulf also needs to pay a political price, and that price is not small. To enter more clearly into a regional architecture against Iran, Trump's demand appeared linked to the Abraham Accords. The Normalization Pact between Israel and Arab nations pushed forward in 2020. The United Arab Emirates and Bahrain paved the way at that time, and then other rapprochement moves followed in the region. The logic was simple. Israel stopped being just an ideological issue, and it started to be seen by Arab governments as a partner in technology, security, intelligence, and defense against the Iranian threat. Now, Trump is trying to push this same logic to a higher level. It's not just about signing diplomatic papers. The intention is to force Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Pakistan, Egypt, Jordan, Bahrain, and other nations involved in the negotiation to take a clearer stance if they want the United States to hold back Iran. Then they need to stop supporting the pretense that Israel is the central problem in the Middle East. For Trump, the central problem is the Iranian regime. Iran fell into the trap because it tried to use fear as a tool. By targeting the Gulf, Tehran wanted to make these monarchies put pressure on Trump, but Trump turned that pressure into political debt. Each request for calm became an argument to demand more alignment. Every sign of panic became proof that the old game was over. And every Iranian threat against the region helped the White House defend the idea of a common front with Israel at the center of regional defense. Saudi Arabia is the heaviest piece on this board. The Saudi king holds the title of guardian of the two holy mosques in Mecca and Medina. A formal rapprochement with Israel would not just be another signature, it would be a signal to much of the Muslim world that the Iranian narrative has lost strength. The Tehran regime has always tried to present itself as the defender of resistance against Israel, but if Riyadh moves in another direction, that narrative becomes much weaker. Pakistan is another delicate case. It is not an Arab nation, but it is a Muslim power with demographic weight, military and nuclear. If Islamabad even cracks open the door to a new position, the symbolic impact would be enormous. Trump knows this. That's why the pressure isn't just on wealthy Gulf governments. It also targets governments capable of changing the perception of other Muslim nations that have always waited for Saudi Arabia to make the first move. Qatar is the most awkward case. Doha has maintained relations with different sides of the crisis. It sheltered political leaders of Hamas and built influence precisely by talking to everyone. From a pro-Trump perspective, that's exactly why the pressure is on. If Qatar wants to be treated as a security partner, it can't keep using ambiguity as an eternal shield. The war showed that this ambiguity also has a cost. Trump also put Iran in a position of strategic humiliation. By talking about a broader coalition and linking regional peace to the Abraham Accords, he sent a direct message to Tehran and to the Iranian people. The regime may keep shouting against Israel, but the region is starting to act out of necessity. Missile defense, radars, technology, intelligence, and economic routes are pushing previously distant governments to the same table. This move does not eliminate the immediate risk. Iran still has missiles, regional influence, allied militias, and the ability to create crises. Negotiations remain tough, and Trump has made it clear that he will not accept a weak deal just to appear diplomatic. The demand to keep routes open, prevent Iranian control over strategic passages, and block blackmail over international navigation shows that the White House does not want to reward Tehran with an easy victory. The most important detail is that Trump is not selling the illusion that a conversation will resolve the Iran issue. The Iranian regime is an ideological, military, and religious structure that has survived sanctions, covert operations, targeted attacks, and decades of pressure. Destroying a facility can delay a program, overthrowing a leadership can open up internal disputes. But isolating the regime from the narrative that fuels its influence is a different kind of pressure. That's why rapprochement with Israel appears as a central piece. Iran has always depended on the idea that the Muslim world would be united against Israel. This image helped Tehran justify external spending, finance allies, influence radical groups, and present itself as the moral leadership of the region. Trump is trying to shatter that image. If Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and Qatar are drawn into a new strategic logic, Iran loses part of the banner it has used for decades. The attack on October 7, 2023 also fits into this interpretation. Before that tragedy, the rapprochement between Israel and Saudi Arabia was advancing behind the scenes. Hamas attacked Israel at a time when this process threatened to change the regional balance. The war stalled normalization, reignited pressure on Arab governments, and gave Iran time to try to keep its narrative of resistance alive. Now Trump is trying to use the outcome of this crisis against the very architects of that chaos. The move is simple to understand but hard to execute. Trump holds back when necessary, shows strength when Iran tests the limits, and uses the negotiating table to push allies to make a decision they didn't want to make. The Gulf may still be afraid of Tehran, but it can no longer pretend that sitting on the fence guarantees security. The war taught that lesson in practice. The economic side also carries weight. A new architecture between India, the Gulf, Israel, and Europe only works if there is security, predictability, and regional cooperation. Iran understands that being bypassed by new trade routes and technological alliances weakens its ability to use blackmail. That's why the dispute is not just military. Trump is using negotiation to change the cost of ambiguity. If the Iranian regime threatens the Gulf needs to choose who guarantees its security. And in that choice, Israel is no longer taboo and becomes part of the practical solution. Iran tried to make Trump back down, but the pressure Tehran put on the region gave Trump the perfect argument to demand a bigger change. That's exactly where the trap is. The regime tried to scare the Gulf to save its position and ended up helping Washington show that the Gulf will only have real security when it stops treating Israel as an enemy and Iran as a manageable problem. I'm Milson Alves, an international affairs specialist, and my purpose is to keep you well informed with the truth every day. The news links are in the video description. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and at the end, check out the comments so you can be even more engaged with the Milson Alves community.